Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Alice and today I'm going to be talking about my bipolar diagnosis, how it's affected me, how I found out about it, and all of that good stuff. During this process, I'm going to be working on this anti-hero inspired piece because this song really connects to me, especially as somebody with bipolar. I often do feel like the anti-hero and don't understand why people root for me. And this is something that really just cut deep. And so I really wanted to create a piece that talked about it. And this is something that I've been intending to talk about on my YouTube channel for a really long time and just haven't gotten around to it or haven't been in the mental space to talk about it. So for those of you that don't know, I am diagnosed with anxiety, clinical depression, ADHD, trichotillomania, and bipolar 2 with rapid cycling. So what does that mean? Bipolar 2 is different than bipolar 1. Bipolar 2 people experience hypomania instead of regular mania. The difference between this is there's often a lot less delusions. You tend to feel just a lot more active, and you can make a lot of really stupid decisions and be a lot more just kind of emotionally affected, but you're not necessarily thinking that you're God or thinking that people are out to get you. So it's a little bit of a different type of bipolar, and that's the kind that I have. What rapid cycling is it means that I go back and forth between my manic and my depressive phases very quickly. I can be in a depressive phase for 2 to 3 days, then I can be manic for 2 to 3 days, and then back into a depressive phase. So it's a very up and down process, and it can kind of feel like living on a roller coaster of emotions. I also want to say that this is all based on my personal experience, my own diagnosis, the things that I know, the things that have affected me. This is not true for all bipolar people, and I don't want to come across as like speaking for the entire community when in reality, I'm just talking about myself and how it's affected me. So I got diagnosed with bipolar when I was 26, but it wasn't the first time that bipolar had ever been brought up to me. When I was about 22, 23, I went to the doctor to talk about ADHD medication because I had recently found out that I was ADHD and also had anxiety, which I will talk about in another video about how I found out about that and the things that I thought were normal but turned out to not be normal at all. Like just being anxious all the time. I was like, yeah, that's just something that people feel, right? Their heart just starts racing. Like that's normal. Apparently not. But when I went in to talk about that, my GP, who's been seeing me since I was a little kid, told me that she thought I was bipolar. And I just kind of laughed it off and I was like, no, I really don't think I'm bipolar. I think it's just a combination of ADHD and depression that are making me feel this way, making me kind of jump back and forth between feeling energetic and excited and being depressed. That made sense to me in my head. And she was like, okay, whatever you say, like, here's your ADHD medication. Because I clearly had ADHD, whether or not I had bipolar or not, the ADHD is strong within me. Let's just say that. And I kind of forgot all about it and kind of went on with my life, doing my ADHD thing, working on my mental health, working on my personal stuff. And I had always had issues with feeling like I had an explosive temper, feeling like I got angry really quickly and wasn't able to bring myself down, calm myself down, manage that. And by the time that I was 26, I was having daily panic attacks and I was just feeling off. Just feeling really wrong. I felt like my reactions to things were so extreme and I didn't know how to bring myself down. I would have little attacks where I was so angry and frustrated that I would have to curl up in a little ball on the floor and just hold my arms so tightly that I would get bruises on my arms just to keep myself from trigger warning self-harming. So it was a really hard place to be in. And so I went to my doctor again and she said, I still think you have bipolar. And I said, okay, tell me more about bipolar because I have heard, that you need to be manic for a certain period of time or whatever. And I just feel like highly energetic. And that's when I learned about rapid cycling bipolar. And the moment that she started telling me about rapid cycling, things started clicking and making sense in my head. And I started asking, oh, like I've been up till 3 a.m. every night. I've been waking up at 7 a.m. I've been working constantly. I feel really high and energetic. Am I manic? And she said, yes. And I was like, oh, so that's okay. That's what's going on. That's hypomania. And it turned out that that was affecting a lot more of my life than I originally thought. I got on medication and things started to get a little bit better, but it just wasn't working correctly. I felt like I could control my emotions a little bit more, but I was still getting to the point where I was so stressed and so upset. And it got to the point where instead of reacting negatively, reacting really cruelly and meanly, which I hate to talk about because I think you guys have this like image in your head of me as someone that's always supportive and always sweet and always kind. But the reality of the situation is sometimes my bipolar gets the best of me and I'm not that way. Sometimes I can be a really, really mean person, and that's something that I don't like about myself that I want to work on. And so I realized that my bipolar medication wasn't working correctly. And one of the things that caused me to realize that was the fact that I was jumping out of moving cars. Multiple times I jumped out of a moving car. This is so like awkward to talk about, but I got to the point where I knew that I didn't want to react in the explosive way that I was reacting. I was starting to recognize the explosive way that I was acting, but I couldn't get myself to stop. So the only solution that I could come up with was running away, which meant that if I got in a fight with my boyfriend and we were in the car, my instinctive reaction was to run, whether I was in the car or not, which caused me to jump out of a moving car at least 3 times. One of the times I didn't have shoes on, I didn't have my phone. I ran away downtown and collapsed under a streetlight, literally in public, on the sidewalk, was in the fetal position under a street lamp crying in the middle of the day. It's so embarrassing when I look back on it. And bless the guy at Jimmy John's, because he came out and he was like, "Are you okay, sweetheart? Like, what's going on?" And I'm just like hyperventilating. And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I got in a fight with my boyfriend. I ran away. I don't know what's going on. I'm really stressed out." And he was like, "Do you want to use our phone to call your boyfriend?" So I was able to use my phone. I actually had to call my sister first because I have her number memorized, but I don't have my boyfriend's number memorized. And I had to call her and be like, "Hey, I need Derek's number because like I don't know how to get in contact with him." So I was able to get in contact with him. I was able to meet back up with him, and he came and got me, and we went home and we talked it out. But that was a moment, and this was not the first time I had jumped out of a moving car. So that was the big moment that I was like, this is really dangerous for me. Like something really, really bad is going to happen to me if I continue behaving in the way that I'm behaving. And while I felt like the medication had gotten me to the point where I could recognize when I was behaving inappropriately, it wasn't enough to get me to stop behaving inappropriately. So I kind of like went back to the doctor, we talked about medication, and we got me on a different medication in addition to my first medication. So for anyone curious, I am on Lamictal in the evenings and I'm on Abilify in the mornings. And Abilify basically changed my life. I have never felt more like I want to cry talking about this because I have never felt more emotionally stable in my life. I'm like, I feel emotionally stable. I'm like, I want to cry about it. But I finally feel like I'm at the point where when I feel those things, I can bring myself down, because one of the things I want to talk about is what it's like to feel that way and feel completely out of control of your emotions. It's like you are trapped in your head and you're watching yourself do these horrible things and say these horrible things or act in such a way that you don't like, that you're disappointed in, but you have no control, no way to stop it. It's like you're a prisoner in your own mind. And it takes away so much of your freedom, and it really just feels like you are trapped in your own brain and you have no control over what you're doing or what you're saying until all of a sudden you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, and finally you gain back control. But by that point, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you've said or done things that are damaging, and you have to deal with the consequences of that action, because being bipolar, having mental illnesses, it's an explanation, but it is not an excuse. You are still held accountable for the things that you say and do and the hurt that you cause to people when you are in that situation. And I didn't want to be causing harm to the people that I loved, the people that I cared about, and I didn't want to be causing harm to myself, because it is so exhausting to feel that way. It is exhausting to deal with feeling like you've hurt people. It is exhausting to deal with hurting yourself. And so finally, changing my medication, I was able to get to the point where I finally felt like I can pull myself back, have a communicative conversation, tell somebody when I need my space, and be able to get my space in a healthy way that does not involve jumping out of a moving car. My bipolar has affected pretty much every single aspect of my life, and that includes my art. I find that when I am hypomanic, I am significantly more motivated to make art, to create content, and to do the things that I want to do. So I actually try to take advantage of when I'm feeling hypomanic, because what my medication does is it does not get rid of my hypomanic and my depressive phases, at least not for me. It does not get rid of those. It simply makes them a lot more manageable. So instead of going, woo, 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 on a roller coaster, you're like, woo. You know, it's just a lot less up and down. The waves are a lot more mild and a lot more controllable instead of being this roaring, crashing wave that is just controlling who you are and what you do and what you say. So when I am hypomanic, what I try to do is I try to take advantage of that, and I will use that to get stuff done so that when I am depressive, I can give myself the grace to take time off because I know I've gotten a lot done previously. So I try to kind of use it to my advantage a little bit. I'm always going to be bipolar. Nothing is going to change that. And while it is not something that I like, it is something that I would absolutely get rid of if I had the opportunity. I would not wish this on anyone. The best way for me to handle it is to try to realize that it's part of who I am. It's always going to be part of who I am. So I might as well try to use it in a way that works for me. And basically that means, okay, I'm going to take advantage of when I'm feeling really, really good and really, really high and really ready to go, and I'm in that hypomanic period so that I can give myself the grace to deal with my depressive episodes, because I know that that's going to happen. So being aware of it, being able to put a name to it and a label to it has made it a lot easier for me to handle my emotions, not just by getting medication, but just by learning a lot more about what it is like to be bipolar. So that's kind of a little bit about my diagnosis and about how I got there, my medication, and what it's like to be bipolar, especially as an artist. This piece, as I said, was really special to me. It's not for sale, but I really built up a lot of texture and layers using my pouring method and then painted a self-portrait on top, because sometimes when you have bipolar, you do feel like the anti-hero. You do feel like the problem. So when Taylor says, "Hi, I'm the problem, it's me," that really, really, really hits. And I wanted to express that in art. So thank you so much for listening to me, for listening to my story. This was really hard for me to sit down and film. So thank you for spending some of your time with me. I really hope you like the art piece that I created, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.